Coming to you from the Tar Heel State, this is the Carolina Commercial Real Estate Connection, bringing you industry insights and hot takes from Carolina real estate experts, helping you begin, grow, and scale your commercial real estate portfolio. And now your hosts, Tony Johnson and Cameron Pearson.
Welcome to another episode of Carolina Commercial Real Estate Connection. Today we have Jordan Berry. Jordan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. We're so excited to have you on today. Jordan does laundromats and hosts a podcast about laundromats. And so, Jordan, tell us a bit about your laundromat company and your podcast real quick and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Jordan. I own laundromats, and I got into this business kind of looking for, the elusive passive income, looking for, easy money with low effort, low time commitment. When I got into this business, it did not work out well for me. I lost lots of money getting into it and learned a lot of very expensive lessons. And that's sort of what the podcast was birthed out of. After I had learned these expensive lessons, I really wanted to kind of share them with other people so they didn't have to learn them the way I did. And so I started a blog, and then I realized writing is hard and time consuming. So then I was like, well, I'll just do a YouTube channel. So I started making some videos, and that was better. And then I was like, well, hey, if I really want to get better, I should talk to other laundromat owners and other people in the industry and have them tell me how to do this better and share, their successes, their failures, their stories. And that podcast, little laundromat podcast, kind of blew up a little bit and is doing really well now.
That's awesome. What's the name of your laundromat podcast so people can find it?
Yeah, Laundromat Resource podcast. So Laundromat Resource is the platform, and then the Laundromat Resource podcast is the podcast. It's on all the podcast platforms and YouTube and all that.
And how long have you been doing it?
Just over 3 years now. So I think we're 135-ish episodes in.
Holy macaroni, that's awesome.
There's a lot of laundromat talk out there now.
So going back on what you said, so you learned, and how long have you been investing in laundromats?
So about a decade now.
Decade. That's a good amount of time. So that's awesome. So can you tell us one or two of your expensive lessons that probably had the best learning experiences for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to share them with you. I just need to preface it by, listen, I knew nothing about anything when I got into this. So hopefully
most people don't know anything about anything when they're getting into it, right? Everybody thinks they know something, but you don't know till you get smacked in the face.
That's true.
What's great about your podcast, though, it really is. It opens the doors of people to learn this way, which is a different learning experience than you went through or I would go through in the beginning.
Yes, a lot cheaper to listen to the podcast. So I preface it that way because, hopefully everybody listening to this already knows this stuff. And if not, hey, awesome. But one of the big lessons was, about a decade ago, there was really no information out there on laundromats, almost nothing in terms of how to analyze them, how to, do due diligence on them, how to run them properly. There's really just not a whole lot of information out there. And so I relied on one of the two people who solely, benefited from the sale of the laundromat, right? So the owner, benefits obviously, and then the broker, right? And I relied solely on the broker to help me through that transaction. And it turned out I just got connected up with a broker who did not have my best interests in mind. And, with laundromats, more so than I think a lot of things, more so than my real estate, more so than a lot of other businesses, can be tricky on the analysis side because most laundromats, even still to this day, are cash businesses, right? And it's a pretty notorious industry for, I won't drop a laundry money joke, but for, hiding money
Right.
and skimming off the top or whatever. So it can be difficult to figure out exactly how a laundromat actually is performing. And I did not get any help in that region when I was buying it. So that's one big lesson for me on the acquisition side. On the running it side, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Before you go too far with that, tell me a bit. So let's get and dive in a little bit on that. So,
Yeah.
I was in the bar business for a long time, and it's a cash heavy business too. So you're taking all that cash, you're splitting cash off, and you're taking that, and so it's very difficult then to say how much money was it making, and you're not documenting things properly. So it's a lot of mom and pops that just are, I'm taking the money to live here. And then then I got, my books are all wrong. Everything's wrong. And so then you can't really say how much is it making, right? So there's no clarity in something like that. So how did that look when you got in there? Were you just like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? Or were you looking through the owner? How did that look? How did it go through that process a little bit more in depth so somebody can understand?
All right. So are you asking what I did or what I should have done? Or both?
I guess start with what you did, and then let's go to what you should have done.
You're really jabbing it in there for me. You're really just trying to drive home how embarrassing.
We're bringing up nightmares here.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding. So here's my situation. I'll tell you my situation, then I'll tell you what I should have done. Right. So the broker told me, hey, look, this is what we call in the business a zombie mat, right? Which is a fixer-upper laundromat. This is a zombie mat. You're going to be putting new machines in here. You're going to be renovating the place. We know it's not really the one I was buying. It's not really making money. It's just breaking even. So you don't need to do any due diligence, really. Here's a pro forma of what it's going to do after we put in new equipment and renovate the place. So that was the extent of my due diligence, other than reading through the lease as best I could. So I don't recommend that, because it turned out it wasn't just breaking even. It was losing lots of money, and from day one. And when I went and put in new equipment, which I 100% financed, well, now I also have a note on top of all that losing money. And so, while business did increase, it got nowhere near those pro forma numbers that he sent me. Right. So, advice number one is do your due diligence. And if somebody tells you not to, then find somebody else to help you do that. Yep. But what I should have done is, so I kind of half joke, and maybe it's sort of a half joke, maybe it's not a half joke, that a laundromat can be making sort of a range of income, right? And it's somewhere, the joke is sort of, it's somewhere between, on the low end, what they tell the government they're making, and on the high end, what they're telling you they're making. And the truth usually is somewhere in the middle there. And our goal in due diligence is to narrow that range down as much as possible, right? And with a business like a bar, like a laundromat, especially if there's no books or the books are real bad. I've literally had them handwritten to me and handed to me on a napkin, literally, as they made it up, essentially right in front of me, right? They're just writing it down in front of me. So, who knows how much money's really coming in this thing. So what I should have done is layered a few different income verification techniques essentially on top of each other. So we do things like coin counts, which can be hit or miss, because people can do shady things like we call salting the mines, right? Which is just adding quarters into the boxes or doing phantom washes, stuff like that, right? But those coin counts can be helpful. And while we do the coin counts, we take water meter readings. We want to see how much money came in versus how much water is used. And we're going to compare that to any past numbers that we have. Also have a spreadsheet where you can take the water bill and input just some basic numbers on, how much water is used for a month, and how much water is used per type of machine you have, and how much it costs to run those machines. And it'll back you into an amount, a ballpark, but a ballpark amount of how much money should be coming into that laundromat. So there's a few different things that you can layer on top of each other. And what I'm looking for in those is I'm looking for the anomalies, right? What's standing out? What's not making sense? And then I can go and uncover the reasons why those anomalies are there and extract more data essentially than is available usually.
Yeah, I would think that would certainly cut down on the salt in the mines, because there's no way to fake that. Yeah, that's great.
I also recommend, like, hey, put a contingency in there that you have access to the camera system, right? And do it under the guise of, hey, I want to see when people are coming into the store. I want to see what machines they're using and not using. I want to see what days are busy, and I'm busy. I can't go sit there all day and do that, because that's the traditional way of doing it, right? Go sit in the laundromat all day. But if you get access to the camera system, it also is a deterrent for that owner doing something shady.
That's interesting. All right. So we're on the one aspect, the laundromat business. Now, you're also investing in the real estate of the laundromat. So when we're looking at this, you're buying the business. So you've got the business aspect, and then you're buying the real estate. So as far as your due diligence on the business, you're finding out, that, and you're looking at, I'm assuming you walked into this one with the anticipation of replacing all of the equipment, right? Mm-hmm. Is that typically what you're looking at when you're taking over a laundromat? Are you always going in assuming you're replacing all the equipment? Like, are you taking all value add ones, or do you ever look at ones that the equipment's in good shape and the operation, you're just going to up the operation, or is it always something where you're going in kind of revamping the whole place?
No. So here's the thing about laundromats is, like, you can go in and do, like a turnaround, right? Like I was trying to do, attempting to do, and you can make good money that way, and you can build some equity in your business and all that. And that could be one strategy, right? But for laundromats, I mean, the real draw of laundromats is the cash flow, right? And I say this a lot, and maybe it'll offend you guys, hopefully a little bit, so we can get like a little,
Sure.
jab session going in. But the average real estate deal can't touch the average laundromat deal when it comes to cash flow, right? And the reason for that is the way that they're valued, right? Commercial real estate especially it's valued at a cap rate. Those cap rates are pretty low lately. And for a laundromat, an average base hit laundromat, you should expect a 20 to 25% return on your investment, and that's unleveraged, right? And so when you throw leverage on top of that, those numbers can go up pretty significantly, pretty quickly. And so, a lot of times when people are saying, hey, I'm looking for to leave my 9-to-5, replace my W-2, for a lot of people, I think a business like a laundromat is actually a good way to go, because you're going to get that cash flow pretty quickly. And I'd say probably 99% of America could replace their 9-to-5 income with 1 to 3 laundromats, right? And so that becomes pretty attractive on the cash flow side. So, with all that said, I'll also buy just performing laundromats that I'm just going to take over, and maybe I'm up in the operation, or maybe they're mostly turnkey, because really what I'm trying to buy there is that cash flow from the laundromat.
And do you look at spots to start like a completely new laundromat? Would that be something that you would find real estate and say, this is a great spot for one?
Yeah, I have looked for spots before. It's tough. I'm in Southern California here, and it's tough. We have those impact fees.
Yeah.
Let alone California just makes everything difficult here, business wise and real estate wise. But we have these impact fees, and so for an example, I was looking to build out with a couple partners a 3,000 square foot laundromat. It was going to be like a $1.2 million laundromat. And we got to these impact fees, and for this 3,000 square foot laundromat, and just in case anybody doesn't know, an impact fee essentially is just like a thumbs up. It's like a, hey, we're going to allow you to connect to the sewer. It's not a permit to connect to the sewer lines, and it's not the actual construction. It's like a okie dokie, like go for it. But those impact fees before the permits, before the construction, before the supplies, before the equipment, for any of that stuff, impact fees were going to be $390,000 for that space. And it essentially just killed that deal. Right. So, and that's not true everywhere. It just happened to be true where we were looking to build this one space. And those impact fees can vary wildly. But usually they charge them by machine, and you're paying a certain amount per machine. So they can add up quick.
Yeah. And those are expensive in a lot of different markets. It just depends where you are. So they do vary significantly market to market. And yeah, that is extremely high for a laundromat.
for a thumbs up.
Yeah. So, but it just depends. So when you get in any commercial building, especially if you have a sprinkler, those impact fees for normally a 6 or 8 inch main water line is extremely expensive. So large water lines, large sewer tap in lines, those are, it can really blow up. So if you haven't done much development or building, that's one of the largest unforeseens that you'll hit if you don't do your research. But they normally have any county has basically a template price sheet you can go figure out. So you want to do that early in any due diligence whenever you're preparing to build anything, because that is a major expense that if you haven't done this before, any type of development before building, you would not really have that on your radar when you're doing a quick little underwriting, but it's a major amount of money. So something to definitely be aware of.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So let's kind of run through this. So let's just taking that out of the equation. Let's say you're building a 3,000 square foot laundromat. So in a 3,000 square foot laundromat, so you're saying like 1.2, what's your budget? It's like 300 a foot. Does that, when you're underwriting it that way, would that include all your equipment, or is that just for the build out?
Yeah, that was going to include all the equipment. Now I should preface this by saying this was maybe 2019, 2020. So
right.
Things are.
So we're talking at this point, we're talking about 12 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Money was cheap and equipment was cheap, and no longer the case for either.
Yeah. Okay. But right. So,
but the number's still pencil.
The number's it's still close. We can still make this work.
You can't still, and there are still people building right now, right? Even though equipment's higher, financing obviously is more expensive than it's been since I've been in the industry. But people do still build right now. It's definitely slowed down on the building front for laundromats, like a lot of things. But it's still happening for sure.
So they're good. So let me ask you another question about operation, and then we'll start getting into real estate aspect of it. So far as an operation standpoint, when you go in and you're adding value, if you're doing multifamily, people are putting in the parks and doing this. Tell me a little bit, without giving too much away, but let's just give it all away. What are the greatest return on investments that you're seeing of things that you're putting in to laundromats? So is it that you're changing from doing coin style to swiping cards? Is it that you're putting a nice little seating area for people to stay? Are you making the place a nicer place? Are you delivering laundry? What are kind of your biggest return on investments that you're adding to these laundromats?
Yeah, great question. So part of it will depend, and I'll tell you kind of how it flushes out, but part of it is going to depend on what business model you want to have, right? So the quickest wins usually for these laundromats is raising your prices immediately. Like this is still very much a mom and pop industry, and the bane of our existence is inflation, because we are notoriously terrible at raising our prices to keep up with inflation or more. Right. And so a lot of laundromats are underpriced. So raising prices is your quickest value add for most laundromats when you're going to take over them. Another big value add is adding larger equipment, right? There's a lot of laundromats out there that are full of top loaders. Top loaders are the worst. They're super inefficient. They use a ton of water. People make a mess with them. They break down more often, on and on and on. Right. And so now we're starting to put in 80, 100, 120 pound machines where you can throw the whole family's laundry and the dog in there, get it all done at once. Right. And so those bigger machines are great because people love them, gets them in and out quick, but also their margins are pretty good on those big machines too. So adding larger machines is another one. You can add ancillary sort of income stuff like vending machines or ATM and stuff to have some of that extra income. But another potential really big income stream that you can add, but again, it depends on the business model you want, is the service side of the business. That's something that started booming during COVID and has only grown, and I think will only continue to grow going forward. And what I mean by service side is either the drop-off laundry and or pickup and delivery laundry. Now, with the caveat of really, especially the pickup and delivery, it's really a different business than your self-serve laundry, right? Self-serve laundry, people are paying you to do the work of doing their laundry, right? They do the work. And they pay you for it, right? In pickup and delivery, you've got logistics going on with drivers driving different routes. You've got, you got to keep everybody's clothes organized. You got to keep your staff organized and trained and going in the right direction, right? But that could be a really big business, and it takes, and if a laundromat's, sphere of radius or radius of influence is going to be like a half mile to a mile, or maybe more if you're out in the boondocks a little bit, but a mile or so radius. Well, when you add pickup and delivery or even drop off, that radius can really expand more, a lot more. And so you really open up a new demographic, you open up new locations that you can now service, and income can really go up. A lot of people are doing really well pickup and delivery right now.
Yeah, and I would say, with any business operation, if you clearly get a good process in place and you can scale that process, so operating under an EOS, which is what I operate under, if you can get that business documented, and someone like you that's been in this industry for a long time, if you can document and get the logistics figured out and keep it organized, I mean, that to me seems like the biggest revenue driver, because you have a differentiator that probably you're one of the only ones in that area that's going to offer that. And you get a whole different clientele that you're adding that aren't normally interested in laundromats. But man, so you're going from lower income, which is typically where your laundromat's going to be, where the lower income is. And then that 1 mile radius is all lower income. But when you can expand that radius to a 5 mile radius, all of a sudden you have higher income opportunity. And so you have that other business model, and you can double, triple. Then the location size doesn't really, matter too much, because you can be doing this during off hours when you're not busy. And then I just feel like that can really turn this in. And what you're already sharing with the amount of, upside and your return percentages, and you can add something like that, my goodness, seems like this could be a cash cow.
Can be, and is for a lot of people, and I've got multiple friends who have done that model and then grown their pickup and delivery so much they shut down the self-serve side of the laundry, because they're just processing pickup and delivery 24/7. Right. And, I have a buddy who's doing 30,000 pounds of laundry out of his laundromat that he shut down a day. And he's in New York, so he's got a lot of density, but I think he's charging like $1 a pound or $1.25 a pound. You can see how that adds up real fast.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Moving to New York. Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, me too, man.
Moly. We're coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that seems like a great opportunity. So, all right. So that's awesome. So there seems to be a ton of opportunity for upside, and there's different trajectories of what you can do. So it seems wide open. So let's get on the real estate aspect of it a little bit. I know with this, when you're going through and buying, are there, I guess if you have leaky old machines that have maybe dropped chemicals, cleaners in through the concrete, have you had environmental concerns? Could you walk us through anything like that you've encountered?
Yeah, not really any environmental concerns for laundromats typically. Usually dry cleaners are the ones that suffer the brunt of the environmental concerns. For laundry, I have not run into any environmental concerns at all, actually. Not
really?
With myself and not with my consulting clients who are also purchasing.
That's awesome.
So,
I would have thought that you would, but that's fantastic. That's my ignorance speaking. So that's awesome to know. And that's great, because Cameron's going to look at some right after this, after we're done now.
Oh, I've already written down 3 addresses and I'm going to check out. But
Well,
I actually had the same thought. I thought that the dry cleaning was going to be similar to the laundromat as far as what you had to go through. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, no, not anywhere close to what you got to go through with the dry cleaning, because you're not using chemicals, right? You're using household cleaning products. They're really not that strong, right? And they're going down the drain,
Getting diluted with water, saving if you got, yeah. Well, that's awesome to know. Well, that's great. So, what else were you saying about? All right. So
I missed that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all right. Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't
I
know
got
what
thrown
we're talking
off
about.
with the
just
dry
whisper it
cleaning
into the
that I
mic when you remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's okay.
Just gonna whisper.
Yes, he's coming back to us. He's back in the scary town.
All right, you got weird.
So let underwrite one with me real quick. So when you're looking at it, how are you looking at the real estate? Because obviously this is a business operation, which seems to be profitable on the business side. So real estate wise, what are you looking for as far as when you're paying yourself rent? I'm assuming you're having two different companies, right? So you're buying it with one, paying that one rent to clear the building. So how are you underwriting that compared with the business operation? Could you kind of walk us through that on a high level so someone could understand?
What's really interesting, what I think the huge opportunity potentially is, especially for real estate guys, is still most laundromats are owned by mom and pops, and a lot of times the real estate that they're on are owned by the same mom and pop, right? And a lot of times they're not having two entities and drawing up a lease between them, and so there's no rent amount. They'll give you the P&Ls for the laundromat. There's no rent number in there, right? So you've got to put your own rent number in there. And a lot of times when they're putting it up for sale, they'll say, hey, laundromat and real estate, whatever, 1.4 million or whatever, right? And you're like, well, how much is the laundromat worth and how much is real estate worth? So a lot of what I do with my clients is we will pull these two, businesses apart and value each one of them separately. And a lot of times what I find is that when you pull them apart and value them separately, they're either not going to come out to anywhere near that 1.4 million, or they're going to come out to a lot more than that 1.4 million. And people are just pulling numbers out of the hat a lot of times. And I see this all the time, right? And so what I'm doing in order to basically underwrite it, if there's no kind of rent amount assigned, I'll assign a rent amount. I'll look at a comp, and I'll use, for the valuation on the acquisition, I'll use a kind of just an average rent amount, or maybe slightly under that rent amount. And obviously that's makes the laundromat worth a little bit more, but because the net income is higher with a lower rent amount, but the real estate will become vice versa. The laundromat becomes more valuable because the net income's higher, and the real estate becomes less valuable, but significantly less valuable than the laundromat becomes more valuable, if that makes sense. And so we'll base our offer off of that. And then the goal after we take over is to drop a lease between these two entities. Typically if the laundromat can support it, we'll typically drop a triple net lease between the laundromat and in the real estate. And then if there's other tenants, we'll put them on a plan to get them to triple net also, a lot of times if they're not. And then we're charging, if the laundromat can support it, we'll charge, top of the market rent. Not, it's got to be justified, right? It's got to be a legit rent amount, but we'll charge up towards the top of how much the rent is for the area for that type of space, because it's a way to to increase the equity in that real estate really quickly, just by moving money from your business to your real estate. So you're just kind of moving money around, but creating a lot of wealth there.
So on that note, so when you're going in these, could you kind of walk us through, as you're envisioning them and as you're doing them, when you're going in, what are your exit strategies? So when you're going in, could you kind of walk us through a couple exit strategies that you're looking at typically to make sure that this thing works, and how would you underwrite it?
Yeah. So the three main ways that people will approach this, the most common ways people will approach this is, number one, they buy the real estate and the laundromat, and they intend to hold both of them for all of eternity, right? Like until the cows come home. So, and for, especially for the laundromat, I mean, a lot of people just hold on to those laundromats forever because, like you said, they can be cash cows. And, once you get them dialed in, they can be pretty heavy on the passive side. They're not passive, but they can be pretty heavy on that side. the other strategy is, some people want to have the cash flow from the laundromat. And so they'll do exactly what I just said with the drawing up the lease, and then they'll sell the property, keep the laundromat, sell the property, cash in on the equity, and go do it again, or take that money and do whatever they want to do with it. And then other people will do sort of vice versa, where they're like, hey, I'm a real estate person. Now that I've created all this equity in my property, I don't want to operate the laundromat anymore. So they'll actually sell the laundromat and just, hold the property. And, maybe they do a cash out refinance or something like that on their property, pull that equity out and go look for the next deal. So those are the sort of the typical exit strategies for, when you're buying the real estate and the laundromat there. That's the most common stuff that's happening.
Absolutely. So on the buy and hold side, I'm assuming that they're building everything up. They're going to buy it, they're going to hold it, and then they're going to refinance out what they've put in when they've created that extra value. Then they're no money in and operating the laundromat. So all three, great way to look at it. And thanks for breaking that down, because with the two entities you're breaking up, as you said, you can sell. So you can buy it, hold it, build up value, refinance, take some money out, and then just ride it out as long as you want. Probably you can get your initial investment back if you did it right. And then you'll be no cash in and owning the building and the business.
Well, the cash out refinance, you dodge taxes as well. So then you've got debt and financing your next deal instead of taxable income. So that's great.
That's right. That's the one. Then the other one is you get the cash flow, and you signed the lease. You want to stay with the laundry and increase your laundromat presence. You can sell off the real estate, and you've created value in the real estate by giving yourself a lease where either, like you said, they didn't have one or it was really low. So you're creating a bunch of value there. That's an awesome option. Or just building up the laundromat, the value of the laundromat by doing these great documents and processes and implementing these new plans and then selling that. So you're creating the multiple on the business, selling the business off and creating it at a higher multiple for documenting the business. And then you get to keep the real estate and not deal with the laundromat. So, man, a lot of different options when you're doing the business and real estate in one. So that's awesome. Tell me a bit how you're targeting and finding these, being that they're mom and pop. And with an aging population of probably laundromat owners, as the whole country seems to be aging, right? So there's probably a ton of opportunity. Do you search like a biz buy sell? Do you have just relationships? Are you looking in multiple markets? How does that look for you?
Yeah, so it's a little different now for me than it was when I first started, just because I'm much more involved in the business. But for both myself and my fund, and also my consulting clients, the three things that are working is you going on biz buy sell. It's like LoopNet where deals go to die kind of stuff. You can find deals there, but they can be tough to find, or you have to turn them into deals. But the benefit of going to those types of websites, BizQuest, BizBen, all the biz sites, right, is actually finding the active brokers, right? Because those are the ones who are listing the laundromats. So probably more important than the laundromats that are on those sites are the brokers that are on there. And so, it's like real estate's like most things, right? It's a relationship business. Laundromat's relationship business, right? So building these relationships with these brokers, getting on their investor list so that you're seeing deals before they end up on these sites and you can snap them up, right? So that's one thing. And then the other two kind of things are working, sort of traditional real estate deal finding methods, which is direct mail, is working really well right now. I've had a lot of clients who are having a lot of success with direct mail right now, and essentially like door knocking, where you're actually going to the laundromats, trying to catch the owners there, which can be easier said than done, because one of the draws of laundromats is that you don't have to be there all day, every day. So, but yeah, those three things are all working now, even in this market where inventory is low and demand is high.
Yeah, I find that, there's this day and age with all the technology, you're easily drowned out with text campaigns, email campaigns, and mailers are good for the older population, especially because they still go get their mail every day, and they probably open every piece of mail, even when it's junk mail a lot of times. So that is very good for the older population, the mailers. But technically speaking, the best method is a straight up cold call if you can get them on the phone, or going and actually seeing someone face to face. That's so rare right now. And that's the most important thing about grabbing somebody face to face, is you can grab their full attention, right? Yep. You're going to be memorable, going to grab their full attention. It's going to mean something that you took the time to go there, and it shows that you're serious, that you're committed to it, and that you are not just calling 50 people. They know that if you took the time to go all the way there to find them, that you're a serious buyer, right? So it makes all the difference in the world. And when these people are being called, like a lot of stuff right now, when you talk about limited inventory, I mean, there is everything and anything. So I'm looking diligently for, industrial land, for light industrial property and light industrial, existing buildings. And these people are being hounded by people to sell this. I mean, they're getting hit everywhere. And you've got to find somebody that is not being reached by all the different methods that somebody's trying to hit them. You have to get in front of them to get a reasonable price. Otherwise, these people are shooting for the sky. They have no reason to sell right now. Yeah. They're shooting for the moon, and people half the time are paying these ridiculous prices. So you've got to be out there and be creative and put in the time and effort at this moment if you want to find something. That's the only way to find a deal in this type of a market.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is true in laundromats, whether you're buying the real estate or not. It's true over here too. And I have a ton of conversations with people who are just frustrated. And I'm like, look, right now it's like, on the one hand, it's super frustrating, right? But on the other hand, it's also an opportunity, right? Because if you're one of those go-getters who's willing to get in your car and go down there and who's willing to make cold calls and do the things that all the other people, it's easy to send off a piece of mail. You hire somebody to design your mail. You hire somebody to actually ship it all out, right? Like, it's zero effort. Not saying it's not effective and don't do it, but what I'm saying is if you're one of those people who are willing to go the extra step, this kind of market actually can be a good opportunity for you, because you're doing things that other people aren't going to want to do. And when you can build relationships with owners and sellers, not only are you more likely to find a deal, you're more likely to get a good deal, like you were saying, than if you're just sending off mailers. So it can be frustrating, but can be an opportunity. Yeah.
That's right. Because a lot of times, I mean, people will shoot for the sky when people are just calling them. They just shoot a number out because they just want to get you off the phone, right? And so they'll just pie in the sky number. They might have no intention of selling. And then if you're someone that's made an impact on them and kind of put in that time and effort, and they like you, they might call you even if you're $100,000, $200,000 less, because they want to, this is something that they've probably a business that they've had for 20, 30 years. So they care who they're selling this to. It's not just a number. It's, hey, this has been my life work. And so I'm handing this off to somebody. I don't want to just hand it off to some Joe Schmo that I feel like is a little scam artist, gets more money. I want to hand it off to somebody I like, that's going to continue. I've got customers that have been coming in here for 15 years. I want to make sure that this is going to stay like it is. You're going to treat it right. There's a lot of those things that go into it. So, you have to be a genuine person when you're doing stuff like this. You have to, you have to really immerse yourself and make sure you're doing something that you want to do and come off as legitimate, and it pays off in time.
You can also approach it as informational. So you can go introduce yourself and saying, this is what I'm trying to get into. I'd love to hear your story on how you did it. You don't necessarily have to go in there and saying, hey, how much would you sell it for? So yeah, it's a great way to build that relationship. It could be a 10-year deal that you find down the road because of that, one-time visiting. So yeah, it's all about the relationships, like you said, with the real estate and these laundromats. So that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice too, because, and one of the things that I always, teach when I'm talking to people and trying to help them is like, give, right? Don't just come asking to take, right? And just, so I have like a template that I give out, right? And it's, essentially, hey, I'm Jordan. I'm looking to buy a laundromat. Are you interested in selling? But I always say, hey, put a PS in there and say, hey, if you're not interested in selling right now, no worries. I came across this podcast episode. I came across this whatever resource tool, whatever, that I thought might help you, take your business to the next level, right? And you're giving, right? And if you can do that in person, even better there, to be able to, not come off as, somebody who's just trying to swoop in and get the best deal, right? But also to give And then, like you said, people like to feel like, if it's their life work or something that they've spent a lot of time with, like people like to talk about that and to tell you about how they built up their business and how they made that right. And when they're doing that, that's not wasted time. That is rapport building, and that is creating bonds that lead to deals, for sure.
That's right. Bonds that lead to deals, exactly right. And it allows you to find out more, because a lot of times it's not the dollar amount. It's you have to find out what their real need is. So they might, and it can help you analyze how to properly present something. So you could go in and feel like, yeah, I'm going to give them this lowball number. They want this high number. It might not be about that. It might be they just need to, they want to be comfortable where they're retiring. They just want some passive income for themselves where they're not having to run the business anymore, which can allow a great opportunity for you if you take the time to understand that about them. Maybe they just want to have some passive income and you restructure it for a longer term exit for them, right? Mm-hmm. So looking at a different type of structure as opposed to just a buy for a number, and you'll never know that unless you kind of dig in to get to know someone. And so I think it's extremely important when you're trying to find deals in this market, going to brokers, yes, but a lot of times getting right in front of that owner, it's a completely different story than when you're going through a broker, because a broker is just relaying an offer type that you're making and not getting any story. You're not being able to build any rapport with the seller. So a lot of times, even if you have a broker involved, it's a great idea if you're going to go walk something that's listed to get the owner to come meet you and the broker and kind of walk it and try and have the opportunity to build some type of rapport with the seller to differentiate yourself in a market like this. It's not just about throwing a bunch of blanket offers everywhere, because everybody's throwing blanket offers right now. So, and underwriting deals, and nothing makes sense. So you really got to find something that you believe in, a property or a business and property, and take the time and really dig in. And that's going to make a lot of difference for you and differentiating yourself and getting a deal done in this type of market.
Yeah, agree 100%.
So when you're doing your coaching calls, tell us, if somebody was interested in getting in this and getting with you on the coaching side of it and you're helping them, what does something like that look like? Is it a long-term? Do you sign like a one-year agreement with people? Do you just do different levels? How does that look if someone was interested in reaching out to you and finding out and joining your group?
Yeah. So on the consulting side, I have a couple different options. So I do consulting, but I have a team also of consultants on the site there. And all of us have, you can book an individual call with us anytime you want to, as many as you want to, as long as there's availability on the calendar. So you can book just individual calls there. Or we have, each of us has a consulting program, like on the acquisition side or after you own it too. But for this purposes on the acquisition side, right? And the way it's set up right now is, and I don't know that it'll be set up like this for too much longer, because the demand has grown a lot. And so there's all our times are being taxed a little bit, but as it's set up right now, we'll consult with you until you close escrow on your laundromat. And if it falls through, we'll stay with you until you get your next one and close on that one. So that's how it works. And, the goal behind it, is, and ideally we keep it that way, and hopefully we can keep it that way as long as possible, because the goal behind it is we want to help people achieve their goals, right? If that's financial freedom, if that's leaving their 9-to-5 job, we want to help people do it. And for laundromats, if you buy right the first time, sky's the limit, right? Because your returns are so good in a laundromat. Like, those goals can come very quickly if you just buy right the first time. And my experience was not buying right the first time, and it set me back a really long time of trying to figure out this business, and then trying to recoup from all the money that I've lost, and then trying to build forward. And if I could have just started day one and had bought a good laundromat and ran it well, it just would have transformed my trajectory. And I've seen it happen with a lot of people now too. So that's sort of the options that are out there right now, is an individual call, or we also have a consulting package that takes you through close of escrow.
Awesome. And then you also said So you got one for someone that's going in buying. You're going to help them take down their first deal, maybe their second deal, till they're comfortable. But then also you mentioned you would, for as far as an operational standpoint, so somebody that doesn't know, I think that's a big deterrent. You don't know. A lot of people don't want to get into a new business they don't know, or they want to buy a franchise that already has that. But, not having those options available, it's a big deal to have somebody that understands the operation and is willing to do something to walk them through how to properly operate something like this that would make them more comfortable purchasing. So how does that look? What's the time frame on something like that? And is that just an open-ended thing as well?
No, it's not open-ended. So on that side, so again, anytime you can book an individual call. So that's, even after you own it, if you just want to talk and on those calls, you get to choose what we talk about, right? We don't have an agenda on those calls. Our goal is to answer all your questions, right? So if you just want help with specific operations, you can book that individual call. But then we'll have there's a couple of different options on the operations consulting side. So like the typical one is 3 months long, and, we'll meet weekly and talk through, where your laundromat's at, where you want it to be. And then we'll outline the steps to get you there. And then all along the way, we're making sure you're on track and making sure, we don't need to pivot. Sometimes we need to pivot and try some different things. But we're going to make sure you get set up there. Sometimes, like if you're trying to start like a pickup and delivery from scratch, sometimes people will opt for a longer consulting package just to get it up and running. I'd say starting to pick up and delivery from scratch, you're probably looking at a 6 to 12 month ramp up period. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But that consulting package, sometimes people will opt for the 6 month deal on that one.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. And I mean, obviously having over a decade of experience in laundromats, you are one person out there that's, legitimate and has a lot of experience in it. And sounds like your team also does. So that's awesome opportunity for somebody who's looking to get into this business. I think it's a great idea to at least reach out to you, get at least one call through, see if it's a match, and kind of take it from there. It seems like it's a great opportunity to me on the onset. I love the idea of it. I think it's, anytime you're getting into somebody that's looking for real estate and business, it's kind of a double dip, right? And then a double dip on can be comparable to something like a car wash, because you get the car wash self-serve aspect. You still have to manage it. You still have to have some staffing there. But it's the same thing. So a lot of people have done that. The laundromat, I think, is very comparable to that, and those have good margins. This seems to have ridiculous margins so from what you're telling me, which is amazing. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
Yeah. So Laundromat Resource is the platform. So laundromatresource.com, podcasts, all the platforms, YouTube, all the socials, Laundromat Resource. And then my email is Jordan, Jordan, @laundromatresource.com. And it's Laundromat. A lot of people think it's Laundromat, but it's Laundromat.
Laundromat. I'm glad that you specified
that wrong already.
Yeah, it's a complete mess. The way he can't spell as it is.
No,
nor can I. So, but we wrote it down. We'll probably type it in. It's got spell check in the computer, so that's
Laundry mat with a Y. Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Jordan, thanks so much for coming in today. We'll put all the info in the show notes. And man, we sincerely appreciate you joining us today and talking us through. I think it's a wealth of knowledge for anybody that's thinking about pursuing laundromats. And man, I really appreciate you spending the time.
Oh man, I had a blast with you guys, and there wasn't as much whispering as I had hoped there would be, but there was a little bit in there. So yeah, there it goes. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Jordan, man, I appreciate it too, man. Great information, stuff I didn't even knew existed. So thank you.
Yeah, Cameron's already he's booking his first call over there.
Yeah. I'll be on your long-term package because I'm kind of slow, but no, but I like it. Thanks so much. You can tell you're passionate about it, and it's a ton of information that you've already earned, I say. So thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Jordan. Have a great day, sir.
You too.